I'm Jim from Scotland's Wild, and in my job, I feel as if I'm never away from the Isle of Skye. So what is it that keeps me and my guests going back there? What makes 650,000 people visit this place every year? Well, I reckon it's because it's got something for everyone. It has something for the lovers of photography, landscapes, history, whisky, myths and legends. Don't believe me? Let me convince you with this wee guide to the Isle of Skye. Skye sits off the northwest coast of Scotland, and at 639 square miles is the largest of the Inner Hebrides Islands. It's home to around 13,000 people, and tourism dominates island life, especially in the high season. Since 1995, visitors can access the island via the Skye Road Bridge at the Isle of Skye. There are two ferries still operating to Skye. One is the Caledonian McBrain service from the port of Mallaig to Armadale, and the other is the small turntable ferry from Glenelg. I always think of Skye as shaped like a hand, with the fingers being the peninsulas of the island that jut out from the palm into the sea. Peninsulas like Sleat, Trotternish, Vaternish, Minginish. These names alone excite me and make me want to find out more about this island. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go. This island has it all if you love history. Let's start our journey way back in time at the Jurassic period of 168 million years ago, when dinosaurs walked the earth. Seeing Skye now, you wouldn't think it, but back then, Skye was a subtropical land of dense forests, lagoons and rumbling volcanoes. The island has numerous dinosaur footprint and fossil sites, making it a site of worldwide importance for paleontology. A must-see is the dinosaur footprints at Ancoran Beach at Steifer, which can be spotted at low tide. Many of the dinosaur finds of Skye can be found at the lovely wee Steifer Dinosaur Museum. The island has been inhabited by hunter-gatherer humans since the earliest of times, and has been occupied at various times by Celtic tribes such as the Picts, the Gaels, and then the Norse Viking invaders, and all have left their mark on this place. The Pictish tribes occupied Skye during the Iron Age, which was roughly 700 BC to 400 AD in the Highlands of Scotland. This was a period of iron smelting, forts and farmsteads. Brochs are one of the lasting legacies of this period, and these are best described as roundhouses or forts that we can still see today. A great example is Dunbeg Broch on Skye, where you get an idea of island life in the Iron Age period. The next set of people to have an influence on Skye were the Gaels, who travelled from Ireland to the west coast of Scotland in around 500 AD. They first established a kingdom in Argyll and spread their influence up the west coast of Scotland and its islands, including Skye. The Gaels brought Christianity and the Gaelic language and culture with them, and controlled these lands for the next 300 years. Now let's bring the Vikings into the mix when they start invading and settling in Scotland in around 800 AD, and effectively hold sway over Skye for the next 450 years. Skye, along with other Scottish islands, were effectively run as autonomous kingdoms of Norway until 1266, when the Scots eventually took back control. Are you still with me, folks? Good. Let's keep time travelling. Out of this Norse-Gael mix, we get the two most powerful clans of Skye, the MacDonalds and the MacLeods. These Norse Gael clans originate in the 12th and 13th centuries, and they fought for supremacy over these islands, and they have left plenty of sites for history buffs to get their teeth into. Dunvegan Castle is the seat of the Clan MacLeod, and has been since the 13th century. It's the oldest continuously inhabited castle in Scotland, in a gorgeous lochside setting just filled with history. This clan fight for supremacy of Skye can be seen at the now ruined Duntullum Castle on the edge of the Trotternish Peninsula. It was built by the MacLeods in the 14th century during their battles with the MacDonalds, and it changed hands over the centuries, eventually coming under MacDonald control in the 1600s. The castle was abandoned in the 1730s after the infant son of the clan chief fell from a window to his death on the rocks below. The son was under the charge of a nursemaid at the time, and, as punishment, she was drowned in Duntullum Bay by the chief. Her ghost is said to prowl the castle today, and her screams can sometimes be heard. Anyone ever heard of the War of the One-Eyed Woman? This conflict between the MacLeods and the MacDonalds happened in the late 15th century. Skye had been turned red with the blood of these two fallen clans. In an attempt to make peace, the MacLeod chief offered his sister Margaret in a handfast marriage to Donald MacDonald. This arrangement meant that if in the space of 1 year and 1 day the marriage produced a male heir, then a lasting marriage would result. If not, then both parties would return to their respective clans. No child ever came out of this clan union, and, having no further use for Margaret, she was returned to the MacLeods. Now, during this time, Margaret had lost the sight in one eye. She was tied up, facing backwards, put onto a one-eyed horse, led by a one-eyed servant and followed by a one-eyed mongrel dog, and sent back to Dunvegan Castle and the MacLeods. Incensed by this insult to their clan, the MacLeods once again took up arms against the MacDonalds. This war culminated in the Battle of Corrina-Creech in Glenbrittle in 1601, very close to the Fairy Pools tourist site at the foot of the Coolin mountain range. Such was the bloodshed at this battle that the Privy Council of Scotland was forced to intervene and end the blood feud between the clans. Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, onward the sailors cry. Carry the lad that was born to be king, over the sea to Skye. OK, that's enough of my singing. My dog Jasper has just ran behind the couch to hide. Poor lad. I'll admit, it's not a great rendition, but you may have just recognised that as the Skye Boat song. Suffice to say, I won't be releasing a cover version anytime soon. Mind you, if Bad Bunny wants to come and do a wee Scots-Spanish duet, then I'm up for it, mi amigo. Of course, the song recounts the tale of how Bonnie Prince Charlie escaped the British government forces in a small boat after the defeat at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, which ended the Jacobite cause in Great Britain. It tells how Flora MacDonald disguised the prince as a serving maid, then rowed across the water from Benbecula to Skye to outwit the pursuing troops. Although born in the Outer Hebrides, Flora settled on Skye later in life and is buried in Kilmuir Cemetery on the Trotternish Peninsula. It is said that her funeral was attended by 3,000 mourners. Fittingly, her grave looks out across the Minch to the Outer Hebrides, the islands of her birth. Scotland is loaded with fairy tales and legends. However, strictly speaking, Scots actually call fairies by a different name. Gaelic speakers would call them the Sidhe, and Old Scots speakers would call them the Gid folk or Wee folk. Skye is an island full of myth and legend. Some places even have several stories attached to them. Here are the tales that I love. The magical waters under the Sligachan Bridge is a must-do on Skye, as it's a portal to the world of the Gid folk and will give you eternal beauty if you're brave enough. Why? Well, let me tell you a story. In the mists of time, there was a Celtic warrior queen called Skahach, who was challenged in battle by Cuchulainn, the Irish demigod warrior. The fighting lasted for days and days. Skahach's daughter saw her mother was tiring and came to the river in tears to plead with the fairies to save her mother. The fairies were so moved by her tears and love for her mother and instructed her to wash her face in the magical waters to bless her with the wisdom to end the fight. With this eternal knowledge, her daughter created a huge banquet and feast. The smell of the food reached the fighting warriors, who called a temporary truce to the fight in order to eat. Of course, after having broken bread together, Celtic tradition and respect meant the warriors could not fight any longer. Therefore, an honourable draw was declared. Now, the tears that were shed in the river all those centuries ago has left a bit of magic in these waters. It is said that if you submerge your face in the waters for 7 seconds, then eternal beauty will be bestowed upon you. Beware, you must let your face dry naturally, or the magic won't work. Trust me guys, I've dipped my face in there hundreds of times. I'm actually 147 years old, but I know, I don't look it. Talking of fairies, I'd recommend a visit to the enchanting Fairy Glen. Like pools of water, little mounds or hills are portals to the fairy world. The strange wee mounds at this site are said to be the gateway to the fairy netherworld. There's even a fairy castle. In actual fact, experts say this weird landscape of mounds and rocky outcrops is the result of a post-glacial landslide that happened over 100,000 years ago. But I'm an old romantic, so who am I to get in the way of a good fairy story? Whether it's the fairies or the glaciers that created this place, it's honestly like walking into the Shire in Lord of the Rings. It's truly magical. Let's talk about giants that roamed this land in days gone by. I'm now talking about the legend of the Old Man of Storr, which is probably the numero uno attraction on Skye. My favourite story about this place is that of an ancient giant who protected these lands for generations. It's said that he refused to take on Christianity and was then turned to stone. When he was buried, his thumb remained above ground, and that's the 50-metre pinnacle that we see today. Of course, the brain boxes of this world say that the pinnacle is in fact all that remains of an ancient volcanic plug from 60 million years ago. But you know what? I'm going with the story of the big stone guy with a big thumb. Whatever you believe, a walk up to the Old Man of Storr is simply awesome. And honestly, it's like walking up into the bills of Mordor in Lord of the Rings. It's a fair old hike up to the big fella, but it's worth it for the views across to the mountains of Wester Ross and Torridon. We all love snapping away with our cameras on holiday, and trust me, Skye will not disappoint if you love landscape photography. You'll find awe-inspiring views at just about every turn. There is no more dramatic landscape than the imposing Cuchulainn Mountains of Skye. These jagged peaks reach into the sky, almost imploring you to take some pictures. Formed from ancient magma chambers, then sculpted by glaciers, these peaks draw mountaineers from around the world and are probably the UK's most technically challenging peaks. These mountains require scrambling skills and proper equipment and are not for the faint-hearted. Great viewpoints and photographs can be had at Sligachan Bridge, the Fairy Pools, or Glen Brittle. A must-see on Skye is the Trotternish Peninsula, with its 20-mile-long escarpment. It's where you'll find the iconic Old Man of Storr and the Kerrang for those unforgettable TikTok, X and Insta moments. The Kerrang is a series of rock pinnacles, and these rock ramparts and hidden hollows offer hours of exploration for the more adventurous photographer. The Old Man of Storr is more easily accessible with a well-marked tourist path. You can walk all the way up to the photographer's knoll to get that classic Google image, looking back on the old man with the rest of Skye spread out below you. Still on the trot, yep, the hits just keep on coming here. There are two waterfalls that are worth your time. Milt Falls at Kilt Rock and Lilt Falls. Both provide great photo stops. Kilt Rock is a line of huge basalt columns of over 100 metres, and they are so called because they resemble the pleats of a kilt. Over these rocks flow Milt Falls, which drops into the Sound of Raasay. Just south of here is the equally impressive Lilt Falls, which drop 90 metres down a tree-lined gorge into the bay. A path down to the bay shows you the remains of an old salmon fishing bothy and an old diatomite processing facility. This nod to Lilt's industrial past has given me a wee soft spot for this place. Let me explain. During the 1800s, this raw material called diatomite was mined and processed here on Skye, and was then transported on puffer boats to Ardeer in Ayrshire in southwest Scotland. Here it was mixed with nitroglycerine to make dynamite. Now, I just happened to be born and brought up in this dynamite town, and many of my ancestors worked in this factory, so I kinda have a wee place in my heart for Lilt Falls. It's like a wee connection that I didn't really know about. But now I do, and I love going there and showing my guests it. Ah, the water of life, the amber nectar, a wee dram, the liquid gold. Aye, it's time to talk about whisky. Do you think I could do a wee video without a mention of Scotland's national drink? Aye, right. Like many parts of the Highlands, people in Skye had been distilling and smuggling whisky since the 15th century. The remoteness of the rugged Highlands and Islands meant little interference from government excisemen. Of course, in 1823, the government sanctioned the legal distilling of whisky, causing the rapid closure of the illicit stills and smuggling. Today, there are two whisky distilleries in the Isle of Skye. The largest is Talisker, in the village of Carbost, which was founded in 1830. Selling 4.5 million bottles every year, it's in the top 10 selling malts in the world. Talisker gets its mineral-rich water from a spring which flows down directly through the distillery. I'd recommend a visit to the distillery for tastings and tours. They make a fine set of single malts, and my personal favourite, and I hope everyone's taking notes here, is the Portree, which is finished in port casks, giving it a yummy, fruity and sweet flavour. For many years, Talisker was the only whisky distillery on Skye, but that all changed in 2016 when Toravaig opened its doors. Based in a 200-year-old farmstead, which itself was built using the stones from an old castle that stood on the site, It produces around 450,000 bottles every year and focuses on more peaty malts. It's a charming little distillery with a cracking little cafe tucked away in its courtyard. So, whether it's the maritime flavours of the Talisker or the peated notes of Torravig that takes your fancy, all I can say is, sláinte. Another great thing about the Isle of Skye is that it can easily be combined into a wider tour of Scotland. As well as great links to the mainland via the bridge or the ferry, it's got good links to the Outer Hebrides via the ferry crossing from the port of Uig to either Tarbet on Harris or Lochmaddy on Newest. Let me tell you about some of our tours that incorporate the Isle of Skye. First up is our classic Skye 3-day tour. This is our best-selling tour and it's easy to see why. From Edinburgh, we take you up the west coast of Scotland via Loch Lomond, Glencoe, the Glenfinnan Viaduct, then over the bridge to Skye. You then have a full day on the island exploring its iconic sites. Day 3 then takes us back to Edinburgh via Eileandonnan Castle, Fort Augustus and Loch Ness, the Cairngorms National Park, Pitlochry, and then back to Edinburgh. Are 3 days not enough for you? Okay, let's try the 5-day tour. This slightly longer Skye tour allows us to take in the beauty and history of Argyll and Inverary before spending the night in Oban. We then head on up to Skye via Glencoe and Glenfinnan. After a full-on Skye adventure day, we then take you back to the mainland to Eileandonnan Castle, Urquhart Castle on Loch Ness, and spend the night in the Highland capital city of Inverness. The final day sees us visiting the famous Culloden battlefield before heading south through the Cairngorms National Park towards a whisky experience at Dalwhinnie Distillery. You'll then be dropped off all warm and fuzzy in the city of Edinburgh. Right, let's talk about the big 7-day tour. This is indeed the big one, the monster, the big kahuna of our Skye tours. If locations on Skye, Glencoe, Glenfinnan, Eileandonnan, Loch Ness, Inverness, the Cairngorms and Perthshire aren't enough to get you excited, then this tour has the added magic of the Outer Hebrides, where we spend 2 nights in Stornoway to let us explore the wild islands of Lewis and Harris. Check out our website for full details of our Skye tours and see what one is best for you. Whatever one you choose, I can guarantee it will be full of history, landscapes, whisky, myths, castles, and mountains. You could add in some great laughs, some good music. Yeah, our van playlists are legendary. And a bit of Highland magic in the air. Hopefully I'll see you on tour soon.